Okay, y'all, can I be real with you for a minute? The DFP team and I have experienced some rather uncomfortable moments during our past Disney World visits, and we want to help you avoid falling into the same uncomfy traps before things get awkward. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog, and things are about to get a little cringy in here. During your Disney World trip, you might find yourself trapped in these uncomfortable moments where you just want to melt into the pavement and disappear for the rest of your vacation. But here's the good news. We are not afraid to talk about these. Those uncomfortable moments you might come across aren't just a you problem. Hundreds of guests experience these same awkward moments every day, and we're here to make things a lot more bearable if they happen to you. We might even be able to help you prevent them from happening at all. Not a guarantee, but we'll do our best because we care. First up, swamp crotch. Yep, I warned you things were going to get uncomfortable today. So without getting too explicit here, because this is a family-friendly channel, swamp crotch is just a funny term for a very unfunny situation. When you start sweating up a storm during your Disney day, the inner part of your thighs can start sweating too, leading to a very uncomfy damp feeling that could also cause a lot of chafing in that area. So how can you combat the wrath of the dreaded swamp crotch? That sounds like a black and white B movie that Mystery Science Theater 3000 would be thrilled to watch. Sorry, off subject, but let's go watch Mystery Science Theater 3000 together if you want to. Anyway, pack an anti-chafe stick. You might not be able to stop sweating at its source, nor would you want to because your body is doing its job, but you can at least significantly cut down on all the extra leg moisture. I know, I'm sorry, it was just as hard to say as it was to hear. So toss an anti-chafe stick into your park bag to use in those on-the-go situations. They basically work like deodorant for your legs or wherever you find yourself sweating and help keep you dry. Just head to the bathroom and reapply when you feel like you need to, and hopefully you'll be good to go. Second option, wear breathable clothing. Making sure that you're wearing breathable fabrics or athletic wear can make a huge difference in the battle against the evil swamp crotch. Running shorts or skirts, bike shorts, athletic dresses are some of our favorite options to throw in the suitcase because they're not only comfortable, but they're designed with sweat in mind, which means they'll be quick to dry too. And choose your colors wisely. Sweating is normal, especially when you're battling temperatures upwards of 90 degrees, but we also understand not wanting to expose how sweaty you are. That means you need to choose the color of your bottoms wisely. Gray is pretty much a no-go, along with other lighter colors, but colors like navy, black, other dark colors can be your protectors. And even if you forget this trick, chances are you won't be the only one with swamp crotch, so don't overthink it. Okay, I'm gonna stop saying that now. Let's keep moving on. Now, I hate talking about this one because it makes me relive the pain. It makes Bria relive the pain, but that's why we're here. We're here to share our mistakes because we make the mistakes so you don't have to, right? And today we're talking about your bank shutting off your credit card. Here's a Bria story.
Hey everyone, Bria here, and apparently I'm getting way too comfortable with you guys because, I'm here to out myself again. I've definitely had this happen. I have had the bank shut off my card when I was trying to do my Disney World vacation. So, years ago, my husband and I were trying to pay the rest of the amount for our room over at Art of Animation, but we didn't warn our bank about this ahead of time, so our bank flagged this large purchase as suspicious activity, which that's fair. That was our bad. We should have warned them, and I'm glad that they were trying to keep us safe. But when you're standing there at the front desk of your resort trying to finish your payment and the cast member has to keep telling you your card's been declined, that's not just embarrassing, it's super nerve-wracking. What are we gonna do now? Will Cinderella open up her castle so we can spend the night? Someone help us. Fortunately, my husband was able to contact our bank after being placed on hold for ever on end. And we were able to clear the payment finally, but it did start off our trip on kind of a sour note that we had to bounce back from. We did, but it was all stress and no fun at the start. So learn from our mistakes, listen to these words of advice from AJ, and you guys should be able to save yourself from the same fate.
Thanks, Bria. Anyway, this is a good reminder to fill your bank in on what you're doing before you go on vacation. That way, they can make a note in their system just in case you start racking up bill after bill after bill in a state you're not normally in. Trust me, you're going to do that. If you don't want to eat up a lot of time playing phone tag with your bank or card provider and you'd rather just figure out the card issue once you get back home, then it's a good idea to have backup cash or Disney gift cards on hand just in case you need to switch up your payment methods for the remainder of your trip. Depending on the bank, you might also have the option to resolve the issue right then and there if they've got your cell on file. Select banks will text the account holder's number and warn them of suspicious activity, asking you to text back whether you approve the purchase or not. So if your bank has this option, make sure they've got your updated phone number handy so you don't have to start off your trip on the wrong foot. Okay, now this is very important. You will hate your family at some point. When the whispered fights start happening while waiting in line to ride Dumbo, that's when you know your trip is in trouble. When you combine that heat plus stress plus exhaustion plus hunger, that very well could lead to drag down fights among the people you care about the most. Sometimes the arguments might be legit, but I speak from personal experience when I say 90% of these tussles can usually be solved with a good night's sleep and a good plate of food. So here's my gentle reminder to you. Track down AC during the day, inside gift shops, show buildings, restaurants, etc. to get some respite from the sun. Get plenty of sleep the night before and don't be afraid to step out of the parks if you need to clear your head away from the crowds. Stick with your regularly scheduled meal times as much as you can to keep the hangries away and give each other some grace. There's no use holding grudges over hurt feelings that tumbled out when everyone was so not in a good headspace. The passive aggression can be wild, so once everyone cools down, make amends among your group to salvage the rest of your trip. Also, and this is just an AJ note, don't let things just kind of simmer and bubble and then eventually boil over. If there's an issue, address it. I know, easier said than done, right? Yeah. Okay, so there are no secrets inside a Disney hotel room. Doesn't matter whether you're staying in a value, moderate, or deluxe level room, those hotel walls are thin, so you're going to be able to hear everything your neighbor's doing, and vice versa. Never have I ever wished I could pee quieter before, and yet when I've got to go at 2 a.m., I feel like it echoes, and I know the folks downstairs can hear me. Or if you've got a crying baby you're trying to soothe, you might also need to be consoled over the stress of potentially waking everyone up. Yep, those middle of the night upsets can be very upsetting, especially the ones that are out of your control. The whole toilet flush in the middle of the night might feel like a big deal, but it isn't in the grand scheme of things, because when you gotta go, you gotta go. But if you're worried your baby is not just going to wake you up in the middle of the night, but wake up your neighbors too, you might want to consider a plan B that'll make your baby feel more comfortable. I'm thinking about maybe booking a nearby Airbnb or VRBO instead of hotel. Depending on what you choose, you could possibly get an entire house with plenty of room for your group to spread out and without neighbors attached to the other side of your wall. Just make sure to look over those Airbnb reviews before making a selection either way. But I will say this straight up. As a mom who has traveled with many, many ages of baby, your baby's going to cry. And people who go to Disney World and stay in Disney hotels are aware of that. So please, please, please don't feel badly. If your kid needs to cry, if your kid's up, don't stress about it. Just deal with the baby, deal with you, make sure everything's cool in that room, and don't worry about everybody around you. And for those of you that are around them, here's an FYI. Babies are going to cry in Disney World hotels. It's going to happen. You're also going to hear people flush the toilet, and you're going to hear people pee, and you're going to hear people fight because they just had that whispered fight at Dumbo, and now they're addressing the situation, and in the middle of the night, they're going to yell at each other. These things are going to happen, and these walls are thin. So if you are a light sleeper, definitely bring those noise canceling items like white noise machines, earplugs, noise canceling headphones. They even have these cool like headbands that are made of jersey material that have speakers inside them that you can just wear, and it's super chill. They're made to wear at night while you sleep, and you can have just white noise kind of going all night. So these are options, but just a heads up, just know that this is probably going to happen. You're going to hear stuff on the other side of the wall. I know I've said it a million times, but again, give grace to everyone around you as well. Now, this is a big one for me and probably a lot of you too. Your social anxiety might very well be triggered. You're in a place with a lot of people all packed together and in awkward situations where you're like standing next to people for 2 hours in line and like you're going to have to make small talk and stuff like that. Now, Disney's going to throw you into a lot of places where you're going to forget how to communicate like a normal human being, if you ever knew how to in the first place, in my circumstances. For example, there's going to be awkward Skyliner rides where it's just your family and another family in the gondola, not saying a word to each other. Good thing the ominous overhead voice telling us about Florida's protecting wetlands can help break the tension. Or when you're in line to meet a favorite character, you might suddenly forget everything you knew about the character, like when Ralphie forgets to ask Santa for a BB gun during A Christmas Story. Football? What's a football? Or what about when you're watching Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor and the cameras suddenly zoom in on you and tell you to dance? No, why? I'm just here as an observer. Do not do this to me. Not all awkward situations can be avoided, and some of them may turn into a funny memory in the end, but here are some ways to help you combat the social anxiety when it starts to feel all-consuming. First, go to a less interactive show. If shows that could potentially put you in the spotlight stress you out, just take comfort in knowing that that's not going to be the case with most Disney shows. Actually, I think Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor is the only show on property with audience participation moments that'll catch you off guard and make you do something. With the exception of Star Tours and Hollywood Studios, which will randomly take a picture of someone in the ride and deem them as the rebel spy of the vehicle, though you don't actually have to say anything when you're chosen, and your picture won't be on the screen for too terribly long. All the rest of them with audience interaction elements like Turtle Talk with Crush, Festival of the Lion King, Disney Junior Play and Dance, either ask for volunteers or openly give you the chance to participate, even though you certainly don't have to. Second, think about how you want to get around property. For the most part, the accidental eye contact that you make with other guests on the Skyliner or bus or monorail isn't going to be the end of the world. But if the thought of traveling coast quarters with a bunch of strangers is off-putting, especially at the end of the night when you might be forced to stand on the bus after all the other seats have been taken, then you might be better off driving yourself around property or getting a rental car. Or you can always pay for ride shares or minivans to tote you place to place. Though that might be even worse if it's just you and your driver and a whole bout of forced conversations. Just depends on what your definition of uncomfortable really is. And have character questions prepared ahead of time. If you finally get your chance to talk to the Mickey Mouse, it might be good to have a conversation cheat sheet handy. Think about the characters you're going to want to meet during your trip and prepare questions in advance that you might want to ask them. This is also a good exercise for your kids to participate in. They might be filled with questions for the characters before the meet and greet takes place, but there's a real good chance they're going to freeze up and enter into shy mode when they're face to face with the characters they're used to seeing on a screen. Rides can be uncomfortable physically and emotionally. I'm not talking about the rough rides that leave you with a crick in your neck for the rest of the day, though those are uncomfy for sure. I'm talking about the uncomfortable moments on rides when you might not be prepared for it. For instance, the motorcycle-style vehicles for Tron Light Cycle Run in Magic Kingdom and Flight of Passage in Animal Kingdom can be very uncomfortable against your rib cage or stomach, and for some riders, this ride setup may not accommodate their body type at all. If you do fit on these rides, I recommend puffing out your stomach before those backrests shoot up like a scorpion sting that'll lock you in place, especially on Flight of Passage. I always puff out my tummy real big, and then once it locks in, then I let it go so that I have room to breathe. Now don't worry, this isn't going to make you fall off the ride because you've given yourself too much breathing room. You'll still be more than secure, I promise. If the Tron light cycles don't work out for you, there are modified seats that you can request instead once you're at the front of the line. These modified seats work like a normal coaster vehicle where you'll sit upright instead of leaning forward, bicycle style. You'll be able to determine if the bicycle seats are the right fit for you thanks to the sample seats stationed at the entrance of the queue where you can test them out before getting in line. Or what about when you're seated with a much younger, smaller rider on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad in Magic Kingdom and you accidentally wind up body slamming the poor kid every time you make a sharp turn? Just for future reference, kids will need to sit on the left side of the ride vehicle to keep from getting squashed big time. Then they'll just slide over to your side during those sharp turns instead, and that won't be as big of a deal. Sometimes on those boat rides that have the bench seating, like Pirates of the Caribbean, Frozen Ever After, Living with the Land, Grand Fiesta Tour, a cast member might accidentally misjudge how many people can fit in a row, so the last person in your group might try to sit down but have literally no room to do so. Honest mistake, and the solution is usually as easy as stepping back and waiting for the next boat to come around. But if you don't want to get stranded while the rest of your group rides together, you may want to break up your group into smaller groups before you reach the cast member who asks how many people are in your party. That way you can guarantee that everyone will have a riding buddy and nobody will get left behind. Okay, if there was ever a time to suddenly develop the power of invisibility, this would be it. When you and everyone else around you is just trying to enjoy a nice meal at a Disney restaurant, it's absolutely mortifying when your kid decides that now's the perfect time for a full-on temper tantrum or meltdown. When this kind of instance happens, you gotta take off your vacation hat and put on your parent hat, meaning you're more than likely gonna need to carry them out of the restaurant until they finish their screaming. Because when kiddos are inconsolable in those moments, it's gonna be even worse when you're stressed just inside the restaurant too, potentially escalating the situation instead of making it better. Give yourself some breathing room as well by pulling the both of you out of the dining room for a bit until things start to chill. And if your kid is having really big feelings with no chill to give, it's nice to have another adult in the room to tag team with. That way, one of you doesn't have to completely miss out on the dining experience, even though it might not have been the fun-filled one you were hoping for. I had this happen to me a lot, and there were several times we just ended up leaving the restaurant. Now, I'm not saying I know how to parent better than anybody else, but it happens to all of us, so just know that if it happens to you, you're not the first, you're not the last, and it doesn't mean you're a bad parent. Now, if you want to avoid the meal meltdown before it happens, if that is even possible, we all know sometimes it's not, then bring some small toys or activity books, pre-meal snacks, or tablets for some much-needed tableside entertainment. And if your kid's been exhibiting rather moody behavior right from the start of the day, remember that you can cancel most table service reservations up to 2 hours before the reservation time without being hit with a no-show fee. Sometimes it's better to skip out on the experience entirely than to spend a lot of money on a meal where everyone's going to be grouchy and dissatisfied by the end. Real talk here. Disney's water parks, Blizzard Beach and Typhoon Lagoon, can be miserable. You spend a good chunk of your day trying not to scald your bare feet on the hot pavement. Then you get in line for a water ride. You wait a while, you ride it, you get wet, you hop in line for another one, you dry off while you wait, you get wet again, and repeat the cycle till the end of the day. It's a pretty negative way to think about it. I get it. Not everyone agrees with that assessment. And I don't even agree with my own assessment sometimes if the weather's tolerable and the pavement's not scalding and the ride lines aren't too long. But during the summer months, things can be brutal. So here's how you can still enjoy the water parks without hating yourself by the end of the day. Y'all need water shoes, like a good water shoe with a sturdy back that you'll be allowed to keep on while riding the rides. Then you can avoid the water park pavement agony. Take breaks between the rides as well. I know you might want to knock them all out back to back as soon as you can, but it really does get excruciatingly hot in those ride lines for only a minute of relief. So jump into the lazy river wave pool after a ride through to cool down a bit longer before getting back into another hot line. Consider getting there early and leaving early. The ride lines are pretty manageable when you rope drop either of these parks, so if you can get over there pronto, you might be able to conquer it all with minimum waits to worry about. You can also save for a cabana if you're going to be there all day. Each of the parks has cabana rental options that you can book before your visit, which vary in price depending on if you get a standard, deluxe, or premium. No matter which one you choose, you'll be able to retreat back here for a break out of the sun whenever you and your group need one. Disney recommends that you make reservations for these cabanas before your trip on the Disney World website, though in some cases there may still be last-minute availability you can check on when you arrive. Also, don't go on a weekend or a busy holiday if you can avoid it. I know it's not always avoidable, and if you can't avoid it, I'll go ahead and refer you back to our third point. Consider getting to the park early and leaving earlier. But if you want to avoid your lazy river experience being anything but relaxing, or if you want to avoid having to wait just as long for a water ride as you would one of the theme park rides, then trust me when I say weekdays are more often than not the better way to go. Still looking to improve your Disney water park game before you go? Well, we've got a free guide all about the water parks that'll help you figure out how to get there, the best water park snacks, what you need to pack ahead of time, how the water parks will be changing in 2025, and so much more. Just scan the QR code you see on the screen now or head over to disneyfoodblog.com/waterparks after this. Now, can I just tell you how many times I've stared blankly at a counter service menu for 15 minutes trying to gather the will to go on, or how I've taken a seat in one of the indoor shows and had no recollection of watching it because I fell asleep, or how I've had queue burnout to the nth degree where even a 20-minute wait for something doesn't seem worth the energy. If you're at a certain level of exhaustion and or pain, then nothing is going to pull you out of that except listening to your body and finding out what it needs. That's why we always encourage those break days during your week to give you some time to sleep in and recharge before diving back into even more park activities. I promise you it makes a huge difference. And don't forget, you are allowed to wave the white flag. I do it all the time. Sometimes you feel like you're not allowed to wave the white flag when you've already spent so much money on a park ticket for the day. But in all honesty, you might actually get less out of your park ticket by forcing yourself to stay in the parks instead of just hitting up a park at the start of the day, taking a break, and then returning later on in the afternoon when you're all charged up again. Running out of energy in Epcot? Step outside the International Gateway and go sit on the beach at the beach club for a little while. Can't go any further in Animal Kingdom? Hop on a bus and head over to Animal Kingdom Lodge, where there are rocking chairs around the main lobby with a great view of the resort's savannah and animals. Hollywood Studios got you down? Get on a Skyliner and ride over to Caribbean Beach for a nice little hammock nap. And when Magic Kingdom has pushed your limits as far as they can go, get on a boat or monorail and enjoy a Dole Whip at Pineapple Lanai over at the Polynesian Village Resort. So something else that we want to make you aware of are the codes you probably don't want to know. Cast members have these secret codes that mean different things, and up until now, many of you have probably been blissfully unaware of their significance. Until now. Sorry about this, but if I have to know, so do you. Ready? Time to learn the codes of Disney World. If you hear a cast member talking about a code H, that means someone has pooped. Yep, I warn you, these are uncomfortable truths to the extreme. If a code H happens, custodial comes in and does a special cleanup routine. Technically, this is a biohazard, so they got to get it cleaned up pronto. If you hear cast members talking about a code H, it's probably best that you leave the ride or area and go do something else. This makes it much easier for everyone involved. If you hear a cast member talking about a code V, that means, yep, vomit. Unfortunately, code V pops up a lot, especially around Barf Alley and Epcot, aka the Double Trouble team in World Discovery, where you've got Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind and Mission Space right there next to each other. So many protein spills. So how does Disney tackle the situation? Well, it starts with recognition. If a cast member spots it, they'll make sure to contact the right people. But if a random park goer sees it first, it's important to find a cast member and report it to them so it can get cleaned up as quickly as possible. Typically, the next step is for nearby employees to block off the area while custodial is called, and custodial cast members are trained to deal with it, and they'll make sure to get it cleaned up quickly and safely. One of the more common places for a code V is onboard ride vehicles. If that happens, a cast member will be summoned to clean it up, and the boarding process may need to be paused while that happens. And don't forget that a lot of these rides have multiple vehicles, like even Rock and Roller Coaster can just take that train out of commission for a little while until it all gets cleaned up, so it probably won't impact the ride that much. That's probably why you haven't really heard these codes that often, because Disney's got all the policies in place to make sure that it doesn't affect everybody else. Now, there's also a code A, which is the code for ashes. There are times when guests will scatter the ashes of loved ones throughout rides like Haunted Mansion, but it doesn't go under the radar. Usually the ashes scatter enough so that evidence is left behind on the dune buggies. So if a code A is suspected, you might see cast members hopping into a dune buggy or walking around the attraction with a black light. A weird thing about ashes is that they glow, and they have a bit of a pink tint to them underneath the black light. Once cast members confirm with the black light that ashes have been spilled, a maintenance team has to come clean up the ashes in a suit that looks like it came straight out of Ghostbusters. This means that, the ride has to be closed so that the maintenance crew can clean up a biohazard. And as romantic as it sounds to sprinkle someone's ashes in Haunted Mansion, they're just going to get vacuumed up, so probably think about another place to do that. Another code that it's helpful to know is 101. If a ride goes 101, that means it's shutting down for whatever reason, technical difficulties, potentially weather. So if you are in line and you hear a cast member say that the ride's going 101, probably time to head out and ride something else. Okay, you made it through all the Disney discomfort and you've lived to tell the tale. I am proud of you. I'm proud of us. Remember all you water park people out there too. We've got that free DFB water park guide ready to send over to your inbox right now at disneyfoodblog.com/waterparks. So be sure to hop on over and pick it up ASAP. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.